This is numbers 5 through 10 on the study guide. On numbers 5 through 7, we're supposed to decide if the triangles are congruent, and then if they are, we're supposed to justify our answer and write a triangle congruence statement. So let's look at this one here. I notice that I've got two right angles here, and I know my right angles are going to be congruent. I notice also that I have two angles here that are also congruent marked on the figure. So I've got two sets of angles. And if you'll notice, we could use the reflexive property to say that this segment DB is congruent to itself. So we could say that this is also congruent. Now, if you cover up one of the triangles here, notice here, we've got in between these two congruent angles a side. So again, notice that if you have two angles, the piece that's in the middle, that's included in the middle, is the side. So we could call that angle, side, angle. So are these triangles congruent? Yes, because the angle side angle is one of those acronyms that we said would prove two triangles to be congruent. So the answer is yes, by ASA, and then we're supposed to write a triangle congruent statement. So let's go ahead and say we've got triangle. I'm going to start with CDB, and that's congruent with triangle. Now, what matches with the C? Well, the A matches with the C, so A. What matches with the D that has a right angle? This one here, B. And then what matches with the angle B right here that has that one little mark? Well, then we have angle D. So when you're doing these, make sure you pay attention to the markings on them. Number 6, we're trying to decide if these are congruent. What I see is I have right angles, which are congruent. They also make right triangles. I see I have a leg that's congruent to a leg. And I see I have a hypotenuse congruent to a hypotenuse. So my answer is yes, these are congruent. And it's going to be by hypotenuse leg that they're congruent. Now, for hypotenuse leg to work, you have to be able to prove that they're a right triangle. So they are, because they have a right angle. And you have to prove that the hypotenuses and a set of legs are congruent. And now we're ready to write our triangle congruent statement. So I'm going to say triangle BCA is congruent to triangle. Now let's look at what matches with the B. B goes with K. What goes with the C? C goes with L. What goes with the A? J. Now if we look at this last one here, number 7, we'll notice that we've got a set of angles here that are congruent and another set of angles that here are congruent. And we could even say third angles theorem here to get our third set of angles. But is AAA a way to prove triangles are congruent? And the answer is no. So we cannot say that these triangles are congruent. On number 8, we are supposed to decide what the missing information is that would allow us to say we've got congruent triangles. So let's look at what we have for each of them. This one, we're trying to use the angle side angle. What I see is I've got a set of angles that are congruent. I could use the reflexive property here, and I would know that I've got a side that's congruent as well. But I'm missing something. If I were to cover this up, I see an angle and I see a side. So this side is supposed to be between the two angles. So what's the missing information? Well, if I was able to say this angle, notice I'd have angle, side, angle. If I'm covering this up, the side's in the middle. So what goes with angle U here, or DUT? Well, then I've got this one here that I could go with it. So what am I missing? I'm missing that angle DUT is congruent to angle SUT. That would be the third piece I need for angle, side, angle. This one, I've got side, 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 and notice I'm told that these two sides are congruent. Again, using that reflexive property, I have this one in the middle. So I've got side, side, but I still need one more side. So what's the piece of information I'm missing? I'm missing the fact that segment RS is congruent to segment QD. And if I had that, then I'd be able to say side, side, side proves that the triangles are congruent. Number 10, it says we are trying to do this with angle, angle, side. Now, if you'll notice here, I've got my two parallel lines here cut by a transversal. So when you're looking at the transversal here, I've kind of created this image. And so notice here, I could say that this angle here and this angle here cut by that transversal would be congruent. Why? Well, because we learned that if you have two parallel lines cut by a transversal, then the alternate interior angles are congruent. So that one I can get. I can get a side here because of the reflexive property. So what am I missing? Well, I need another angle, and I need an angle to be in the middle. So here's my side on the outside and an angle. So that means I need this angle here to make it angle, angle, side. So that angle is going to go with this here. So what do I need? Angle A is congruent to angle C. And that would be the missing piece of information that would allow me to say the two triangles are congruent.